Hello, and welcome to Mechanics Deep Dive, a series where we investigate specific game mechanics and see what effects they have for the project. We'll start with the Silk mechanic in Silksong. Silksong has quite a plethora of really cool mechanics that are interesting in this degree. So, how does the Silk mechanic function? Silk is a resource that you use for special abilities, similar to mana in other games. And more specifically, you use this for healing. And if you can see like the bar underneath our like masked health bar, once we have this glowing white section in the beginning completely filled, we can use it to get, in this case, 4 health back because I have a special item, but generally you get health back, usually this would be 3. The interesting dynamic here is that you get this resource from killing enemies. So every time you hit an enemy, you get more silk. And this dynamic between you get your health resource back while actively attacking enemies heavily encourages the player to play really aggressive. In addition to that, the player can use many of their skills, so mobility skills, damage skills, special spell-like abilities, by also taking up the silk resource. So if the player is good enough to not require the resource for healing, they get additional damage or utility out of that. So this kinda incorporates everything that you need for high skill player and newcomer player. So for newcomers, this will mostly be used as a healing mechanic. For more advanced players, this is how you use your special abilities. The interesting fact here in general, though, is, as mentioned before, that it's completely tied to damaging enemies, and you usually get 1 charge per hit. This makes attack speed things really useful, because this means you also have more resources, more mana effectively. And it also makes it so that playing aggressively in the face of danger, the optimal way to play the game. Well, not necessarily optimal, but you get more health out of this. So the more aggressive you are, the more health you have. Usually you use more health if you play aggressive, but this also allows you to play aggressive. So it puts you into a cycle where, well, playing aggressive gets you more resources to play more aggressive. And usually playing aggressive is also the more fun way to play the game. So interestingly enough, this encourages the player to play in a specific way that's also more enjoyable for most players. And it makes it so that you don't have these run and hide moments. So any game that has this like auto health regen moment just has this, okay, I now run out of danger until I can heal back. So either the potion is on cooldown or something like this. And in this situation, you don't have that. If you are in danger and you're low on health, you have to be aggressive. You have to deal with the situation. And this creates really tense situations. In addition, this is also a great way to just have additional resources or items orientated around this mechanic. Okay, dives from the future here. I just want to cover a few more topics regarding the Silk mechanic. So we talked about it in the combat sense, so how do you get it back from attacking enemies and how do you use it to heal. That being said, Silksong has also a really big platformer element. And it is relevant to talk about this because in platforming there is nothing for you to hit. So if you take damage from spikes and falling down into whatever other types of hazards, you will have no way of recovering your health. So they kinda had to accept this scenario and then come up with a solution for that. On one hand, this shoved them into the direction of, okay, platforming sections just kinda get this additional boost of difficulty. Simply because, well, you take damage periodically, and you don't have a way to get this back. So there are quite a few platforming sessions in the game that just put the player in a position of, hey, you either beat it or you lose here. And the alternative that they had is to include enemies in their platforming sessions. They have done so frequently, and they're quite frequently like hazard enemies that are more largely built enemies or enemies that are more static so the player can go there and hit them. But they offer some other type of element that you navigate around, but they're not actively chasing you down. Or there are a few smaller enemies that chase you down, so they actively come towards the player so the player can hit them again. Alternatively, they also included objects that you can hit to get your silk back, but these seem to be really limited, and it feels like they had a really hard time actively putting them into good locations. Which makes sense, because in combat, the thing that's actually damaging to you is also the thing that heals you. This seems to be somewhat easy to play around with, right? It's like the thing that is dangerous is also the thing that gets you your resources back. But in platforming, these things are separated. And now if you include enemies for that, then, well, you include an additional danger that then gives you your resources back, but obviously this additional danger will still exist. And if you put it into the context of, well, let's say we have like these additional resources just lying around in form of these objects, then you need to find a place to put these things logically, and like throughout the game it feels like they struggled with that. They have a few different versions, some flowery versions, like some plant-based versions, some industrial versions where like just silk is spun around certain objects and you can punch the objects to get the silk. But this feels more like something they had to actively force in many of these locations. And I don't think this is particularly bad. Like, I think it's good to have platforming sections that actively put some edge onto the player in terms of, hey, you kind of have to get through this or you don't. That being said, this is clearly something where this mechanic does not really line up as well with the rest of the game. And I'm not sure if there is a good solution for this. Maybe there would be a good platforming element that can be included here. So like some type of thing that you punch for platforming to get your resources back. They sometimes do this with enemies, but I'm pretty sure you could have come up with, well, a version of the physical object that gives you your silk back that's also part of the platforming section. That being said, then this would have been an infinite form of generating silk, most likely. Not sure if this is a bad thing. They have infinitely responding enemy types, so kinda does the same thing already, but it is an additional hassle that you would have to deal with if you go with exactly this type of concept. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the death element. If you die, you leave a cocoon of yourself in the world, and if you come back to that, you can break it and then you get your like money back, but more importantly, you get a chunk of your silk back. And this is probably part of another video, but effectively, specifically for platforming sessions, you can die in a location where your cocoon stays, and then you have an additional platform because you can jump off it by punching it. And you get your silk back, which quite frequently, at least from my play experience, resulted in difficult platforming sessions being two-way streets, like well, two approach streets, I guess. You go in there and you fail halfway, but the next time you have your cocoon in there, so you get an additional heal out of that. So the next time the platforming session becomes way easier, which is fundamentally a good thing. It's like good to have people give people a hand the second time they try something. But sometimes it kind of felt like the game expected me to die because it didn't give me any healing resources, and the second time I had these healing resources, which made it quite easy. Yeah, this is everything I wanted to add. If you have any ideas for cool topics to cover, cool game mechanics that we should talk about, let me know in the comments. And if you have anything to add to this mechanic, please discuss. I think there's loads of things that could be talked about in addition here that are more beneath the surface level. And other than this, I hope you have a good day and we see each other. Have a good one. Cheers!